You're listening to the Fresh Hell podcast. Fresh Hell contains stories of a disturbing and often graphic nature and is intended for a mature audience. Please don't let your kids listen to this, or they might turn out like us. Hi, I'm Annie.
And I'm Johanna.
Thanks for tuning in for the freshest episode of our hellish podcast.
Annie, our last two episodes were centered around the very mysterious death of Max Scheckney and Rebecca Sahau in the Coronado mansion. Do I remember correctly, you said you are watching the weekly episodes of the YOG'TZE series? Do you have any updates for me and our listeners?
Yes. All right. So I caught up and I watched the last two episodes of the Oxygen special with Lonnie Coombs, Billy Jensen, and Paul Holes. And there are definitely a couple of things that I want to mention. I'm not going to go over everything because it was good and you should watch it. And also, I don't want this to become Rebecca Sahau Part 3. But let me just go very quickly through my notes. Some of the things I made notes about were also issues our listeners had some questions about. So one of the first things is they make a point suggesting that maybe Jonah was trying to cover things up. He was, trying to hide something because he was trying to get this all out of the papers really quickly, and they sort of didn't like that. It can look suspicious to want things settled and want to be out of the papers, but it's also, I just think, completely understandable. I think he was just trying his best to manage his life when his son and the woman he loved had just both died. So I don't think him wanting to get on with it, so to speak, and get out of the papers was suspicious. The main thing that was super interesting to me, and it brings up this question, which is, was there another voice in the background of Adam's 911 call? Could you hear? Did it ever sound to you like there was another person?
Honestly, no, not until I read about people thinking that there is one, and I still don't hear it, honestly.
It's right. So it's really, you can't make anything out that the person might be saying. It is interesting, though. They take it to like forensic voice experts, and they basically are saying how everybody has a voice print that looks a specific way, and that when you look at the data, you can see clearly that there's two people talking. So I think that's really interesting, but I'd really like to see the same call analyzed by another expert and see if they agree. You know what I mean? Or otherwise, is it just the not problem all over again?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really interesting, but I do agree that they need confirmation of that. Speaking of the knots, did they have any new info on that?
Yes. So Paul Holes, he looked more into the situation with the knots, and he came to the conclusion that the recreation that the police did and the recreation that Billy Jensen had done with the Shibari knot experts appeared to be the same knot. But those knots did not appear to match the photos of the knots that were binding Rebecca's wrists. Basically, like the figure 8 at the end of it was in the wrong place. You wouldn't be able to tighten it yourself the way it was on her wrists.
Yeah, I still want to see someone try to recreate the knot authentically. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I think we still don't have all the answers about the knots yet. Let's see what's next on my list here. The polygraph. So yeah, next is the polygraph that Adam took.
Yeah, they're inadmissible in court for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. So Lonnie herself says that they're actually just more useful to just see who will take one, and he took one. I don't like Adam. I think he's a crude, grouchy bastard, kind of, but also that doesn't make him a killer. I guess I feel like getting into polygraph analysis evidence would be like talking about hair fibers matching, before we had DNA.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's not the most likable person, Adam, but I kind of feel bad for him if he truly had nothing to do with it. And I said it in the last episode that we did, that I can kind of understand his reaction on the 911 call.
Yep, absolutely. They bring up the issue that I have with the long drop hanging. I think we both have a problem with that. Why wasn't her neck broken?
Yeah.
But why was her hyoid bone fractured? Was she strangled and then lowered over the railing? That is one of the main sort of issues in the case that I feel points more toward murder.
Exactly. Either lowered over the railing or pulled up from the floor, right?
Yeah, hoisted or lowered. Yeah, exactly. It's tricky. Oh, I will say they did a recreation in court during the civil trial with Adam, and they call it a hanging mannequin. But I I think I either had glossed over or not really watched any of the court evidence, like the court video using this mannequin, because they show it in this Oxygen special. And girl, it is not a mannequin, it's a sex doll. It's an Asian sex doll with long black hair. And it was so bizarre watching the Oxygen show because it's the USA. So even though it's a doll, they blurred out her nipples when, the Zahau attorney is kind of showing them where on her body the black paint was found. So that was very strange to me. And I just thought, that must have been a real image for the people in that civil trial. Mannequin and sex doll are two very different things.
I think we can agree on that.
Yeah. So his whole thing was about how it looked like, somebody with paint on their hands had pinched her nipples, and this was all part of like the sexual attack.
Yeah.
But Rebecca had implants. She was whippet thin and very, very fit, and she had implants. If you've got very upright breasts and you're up on your tiptoes painting on a door, I still don't think necessarily that paint being on her breast, unless there was a fingerprint, do you know what I mean, in the paint, then one of the last things was, of course, the DNA. So one of the biggest reasons that I lean toward suicide that was made to look like murder is because there were just no other fingerprints or DNA found. But Paul Holes says that they only used one swab per item. So, for example, that area where there was painting on the door, there was only one cotton swab used to go over that whole area, that like 3 by 2 foot area. It wasn't broken into a grid and then swabbed using multiple swabs for each part of the grid. So that was interesting. And Paul Holes gets into the issues with this. Definitely watch the show. It's very good. But essentially, really, he's clear that it only means that there could have been other DNA there, not that there was DNA there. They all agree with the same thing that I had said, I think at the end of the last one, which was basically that, I think we both agree that her death should be listed as undetermined because there's no statute of limitations on murder, right? So changing the manner, the cause of death, keeping cause of death hanging and changing manner of death from suicide to undetermined. I just feel like, I think a lot of people feel like that would be a reasonable thing to do. Yeah. So please watch the Oxygen special. It was good. I'm not sure it changed my mind, though, that this is a suicide that she tried to stage as a murder. If you're not in our Facebook group, please join us and we'll keep talking about it. I've said before, I'm really still open to either possibility. So join the group, change my mind, change it back again. I really believe that 100% that it was a murder going into my research. And now I think I'm like 70-30 that it was probably a suicide.
Awesome. Thanks for the update and for clearing some of the questions up that our listeners had and that were already a little bit discussed in our Facebook group. I will definitely watch the series soon.
You're going to like it. But yeah, so that's enough with our stale hell from previous weeks. What fresh hell are we going to hear about today?
Okay, today I want to tell you all about a death in Germany during the 1980s. And I know some of you are waiting to hear more about German cannibals, and I promise, I swear, I'm working on those.
Yeah, people really loved the cannibal story.
Yeah, but we like to mix it up a little bit, and it can't be all about eating people. So, and as we say, we cover not only murder and the macabre, but also mystery.
So you've got a mystery for us today then.
Exactly, it's a mystery. We don't know if it even was a murder. And, I'm aware some of you guys out there are not really into open cases. So if you are one of those people who really need closure, you might want to sit this episode out. But if you're okay with a bit of uncertainty, please stay and listen, because this one is a true head scratcher. To this day, it is even considered to be one of Germany's most mysterious cases.
Well, this sounds amazing. I am intrigued. I think I actually prefer unsolved cases sometimes, so I'm looking forward to this. Are there any warnings for our listener?
Nope, this one does not come with a warning tag.
Oh, that's the best. All right, so please tell me everything. Now, what's the name of the case we're talking about?
It is called the YOG'TZE case, and I'm gonna spell it out. It's YOG'TCE. YOG'TZE.
YOG'TZE. All right. So what is that supposed to mean?
Well, we will see. Some also refer to it as the BAB riddle, BAB, and BAB stands for Bundesautobahn.
Yeah, Gesundheit. No, but seriously. All right, so I know an Autobahn is a German highway with really high speed limit, right? No speed limit? I don't know. I know Autobahn. My husband is a really big fan of Sabine Schmitz. Do you know her?
Sabine Schmitz, yeah.
Yeah, Sabina. Who can blame him? But so I know the Autobahn, but not much about it.
Exactly, Autobahn. So it means federal highway, I think, compared to the US, and they don't have a speed limit on most of German Autobahnen. Not on all, as far as I know, but most. Like I read somewhere 70% of the Autobahn kilometers are without any speed limit.
So what's the average speed on an Autobahn then? Like what would the normal flow of traffic be?
Okay, well, here in Austria, we also have the Autobahn, and its maximum speed limit is 130 kilometers per hour. That's 80 miles per hour, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
Yeah, it depends.
Okay.
During traffic,
Yeah,
during
sure.
rush hours.
All right.
All right, so our story is set in the year 1984.
Oh, 1984. So let's see, we've got Ghostbusters, Beverly Hills Cop, Karate Kid. The Olympic Summer Games are in LA, and Ronald Reagan is president. Prince is on the radio telling everyone what it sounds like when doves cry. This is what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's the sound. So yes, it was also the year Indira Gandhi was shot and another prince, Prince Harry, was born. I like Prince Harry. I think he would be great to go party with him. I almost said that my husband was born the same year, but I would be wrong because my husband was born the year before in 1983, but close enough. Okay, so our story is set in Germany. So 1984 was also the year that Richard von Weizsäcker is elected German president, and Katharina Witt wins the gold medal in Sarajevo during the Olympic Winter Games for East Germany.
Oh, right. Yeah, the Summer and Winter Olympics used to be held in the same year, weren't they? I had completely forgotten about that. Do you know when that changed?
Yes, I know, because I also had forgotten about it and I looked it up when I was doing the research for this case, and it was in 1992. Up until 1992, except for the two during World War II, they were always held in the same year and they changed it in 1992. Yeah, so for all of you 80s kids out there, I hope we set the mood for you guys. And for all the younger listeners, don't worry, let's just say it was a long time ago and we wore horrible hairstyles and we did love neon.
Oh my God, so much neon.
Right?
Also, yeah, at that time, my hairstyle was the goddamn Dorothy Hamill bowl cut. Dorothy Hamill and her bowl cut traumatized my early childhood. Why couldn't we have Katarina Witt hair? I mean, why? Why? She spun just as nicely on the ice with pretty long flowing hair, not a bowl cut. Jeez, yeah. Sorry, I really should be in therapy about this. All right, so.
So, 1984 in Germany, West Germany to be specific, because during that time Germany was still divided into East and West Germany. The most important person in this story is Günther Stoll. He was 34 years old at the time and an unemployed food technician. And I have to say, food technician always is one of those jobs to me where I really have absolutely no idea what they actually do. But I think in short, we can say that they develop new food and they improve existing one.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense. I think some of those jobs are really scientific too, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like food chemistry.
So Günther was 34 years old. He lived with his wife in Antshausen, a little town with 1,300 residents. And I think the next bigger city you guys might know is Cologne. And Cologne is around 105 kilometers or 65 miles west of Antshausen. His parents lived in a close-by village called Heigerseelbach. That was a 15-minute drive from Antshausen where Günther lived.
Oh, nice. Okay, so everything sounds nice and normal so far. Married guy, currently unemployed. Yeah, that's a very niche job, isn't it? Of
Yeah.
food chemist. So yeah, but he's
Especially
got an
during the
education.
80s, I think. I don't know.
I wonder, was that the heyday of like?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, he still lives close to where he grew up, so he's probably got family and friends in the area, and it sounds like they live in the countryside. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Zygmunt Adamski, but sometimes those small town normal life is the first red flag in these stories, like Dateline. They lived a happy life in a quiet town. And, it's like, ugh.
Also, Stephen King taught us that.
Oh,
You know?
yeah. Stephen King taught us so much.
Well, it's true, and yeah, you are right. That story has some similarities to Sigmund's story, but we don't have aliens in this one.
Good.
Yes, he seems to be quite the average Joe. But there's one problem. For quite a while now, he thinks that he's being watched and followed, and very often he would mention they and that they are watching him.
Oh boy, who are they?
Well, he never specified who they are.
So it's possible that maybe they didn't actually exist?
Yeah, I think that's quite possible. But I read in one newspaper article that later on his wife said that at one point she too noticed a car parked across the street from their apartment with people looking in the direction of their windows. But yeah, I mean, very easily could have been a coincidence. It's possible that Günther suffered from some kind of psychotic episode and paranoia.
Okay, so Gunther am I saying that right? Gunther?
Günther, yeah.
Gunther. So he thinks he's being watched and he thinks he's being followed, but he never specifies who was watching him or why somebody would be following him.
Exactly. He never said anything specific about it. So, okay, it is the night of the 25th of October 1984, and it's around 11 p.m. Günther is at home with his wife, and they are watching TV. And at first, he's very uneasy and he can't calm down. And then he sits apathetically in his chair, and he's not saying a word and just staring at the TV. And all of a sudden, he exclaims, "Now I finally got it!" And he takes a piece of paper and writes something down, only to cross it out again immediately.
Okay, that's weird. So do we know what he wrote down?
Yeah, well, kind of. So his wife only told this to police 6 months after the night, and the original paper was not existent anymore. But she said that her husband wrote down YOG'TZE. So YOG'TCE, YOG'TZE.
Okay, so that's where the case got its name from.
Yes. So some speculate that he might have written down YO6 apostrophe TCE, so that the letter G was in fact a 6. Others say that his wife might have been mistaken, but we will get back to this ominous note soon enough. So Günther keeps getting more and more agitated, pacing up and down in the room, and finally he tells his wife he can't calm down anymore, and he's extremely scared. He fears for his life, and he fears that he will get murdered that night. And then he says he needs to leave and he wants to grab a beer in his favorite pub. And his wife tells him to drive carefully.
Okay, so wait, the guy is clearly very distressed, and his wife is just like, okay, see you later, alligator. Have fun down at the pot. Like, what? Who? No, this is very strange to me.
Right, I'm so glad you say that, because the whole time I was thinking, what the fuck is wrong with her?
Right?
Imagine your husband Paul being that upset about something, and would you ever let him just drive off all by himself?
No, no. I mean, first of all, Paul never gets upset about anything, so I've really done well there for myself. But yeah, there's no way if anybody that you loved was behaving that bizarrely and then at that hour of the night wanted to just leave. So strange.
That's what I thought. I would tell Philip to pour himself a glass, or, I would go with him.
Yes.
She stayed at home and kept watching TV and told him, yeah, be careful,
no.
drive safely. So Günther drives off to his favorite pub. It's a place called Papillon, so the French butterfly, and it's located in Wilnsdorf. And that's only a 7-minute drive south from Günther's home. So he arrives at the bar a few minutes after he left home. He takes a seat at the bar and orders a beer. But before the bartender can even serve the ordered drink, Günther falls off his bar stool.
Oh no. Well, he just got there. Was he already drunk?
Well, that's obviously what everybody in the place thinks, right? I mean, a guy walks into a bar. Yes, I know a lot of jokes start like that. A guy walks into a bar around midnight or around 11, orders a beer, falls off his stool. I used to work for many, many years as a bartender, and clearly that's what I would have thought. The bartender and the other guests help him up and they tell him, hey, buddy, I think you had enough for tonight. And he swears that he didn't drink one drop all evening. And according to his wife, this seems to be the truth.
Huh. So, and if it only took him a couple of minutes to drive, like less than 10 minutes to go from his house, right, to the Papillon, there wasn't really any time for him to have gotten drunk somewhere else. Even if he'd been drinking on the road to the bar, he wouldn't be drunk enough to fall off his chair.
Exactly. I mean, 7 minutes, that's nothing.
Was he involved in drugs?
I mean, maybe, but not that we know.
Yeah.
As far as we know, Günther then takes a shot and leaves the bar again. and that's when we lose track of him for almost 2 hours. We don't know where he went, what he did, or if he met someone in these 2 hours. But around 1 a.m., he appears in Heigerseelbach. Do you remember the village where he grew up and where his parents and siblings still live?
Yes, that was just like 15 minutes from his house, right? So why would it take him 2 hours to get there? It's very clearly he's been somewhere else in the meantime, right?
Yeah, it seems like it. It would have taken him around 20 minutes on a short drive back up north to go from the Papillot to Heigerseelbach. Maybe he was driving around for 2 hours? We don't know what happened. That's the unfortunate thing about this story.
It's so strange. Okay, so he drives to his parents' house.
Yeah, you would think so, but no, he did not.
Oh, so where did he go?
He rang the doorbell at the home of Erna Helfritz.
I'm sorry, who?
Erna Helfritz. She was an elderly lady.
Great name.
So Erna Helfritz was an elderly lady who lived a few houses down from Günther's parents. She knew Günther and his family for many years already. She had been described as very religious and as a good Christian. And I've read this description a few times, so it must have been kind of important to describe her like this. So around 1 a.m., Günther rings her doorbell and Erna Helfritz opens the window to see what in the hell is going on. And when she sees that it was Günther Stoll who rang her doorbell in the middle of the night, she is quite confused and she asks him what he wants. And Günther answers that he needs someone to talk to, that there will be something horrible happening that night and that he's very scared. And Erna tells him to go and wake up his parents and to talk to them if he's in trouble, because he knows that he can talk to his parents. And Günther replies, they won't understand him. And obviously Erna Helfrich thinks that Günther is drunk. And she tells him to go home to his wife and that he will be safe there. And again, Günther says he didn't drink anything.
Yeah, listen, young man, please, if you could just drive yourself home now so I could go back to bed. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right?
Right.
Oh,
Well, it's the 80s, ladies and gentlemen.
I know, I know. I do get it, though, to be fair. I get it. It can be very scary. It would be very scary if some weird guy rings your doorbell in the middle of the night and tells you that something awful is about to happen. I mean, right? Especially if you're an older lady living alone.
Yeah, fair enough. But I know you well enough now that I know that if the neighbor's son would wake you up in the middle of the night, you would let him in and you offer him some hot cocoa and maybe a smoke to calm down and talk all his troubles away.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely hot cocoa. Probably just hot cocoa. They're still very young. But yes.
So Erna tells Günther to drive home to his wife, and he goes, yeah, you're right, bye. And he drives off.
Oh, God.
And that's the second time that we lose track of his whereabouts. So 2 hours later, around 3 a.m., a truck driver named Georg Konzler approaches the highway exit Hagen Süd. Now, that exit is around 100 kilometers or 62 miles north from Heigerseelbach, where Günther left 2 hours ago. So Hagen Süd is approximately an hour drive from Erna Helfritz's house.
Okay.
But Georg Konzler is not the only truck on the road that night. Back in the 80s, the trucks were still allowed to drive the whole night without any problem.
Fueled with diesel and cocaine. Right? And all the fucking neon in the world to keep you up.
So ahead of Georg drives Holger Meffert. I love all those names. It's so German names.
The names in this are the best.
So Holger Meffert drives with his truck like 100 meters ahead of Georg. Holger Meffert spots what appears to be a crashed car a little bit off the highway, and he also sees a person in a very light jacket walking around the car. He immediately stops his truck because he thinks that the driver of the car is injured and he wants to help. And also Georg Konzler stops his truck. And while Holger Meffert uses the emergency phone to call for help, Georg Konzler makes his way to the car. And the person in the light jacket took off as soon as the truck driver was approaching the car. But inside the car, they find Günther Stoll, naked and heavily injured on the passenger seat.
Oh no. Okay, so injured is not really a surprise, but naked?
Yes, naked. And I read two different things about that. One said that his clothes were nowhere to be found, and the other source stated that his clothes were found neatly folded in the back of his car.
Okay, so it was Gunther's car. Then why was he naked in the passenger seat?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? So he was really injured badly. His right arm was barely attached to his body anymore.
Oh, that poor man. This must have been a really bad accident then.
Well, that's the thing, though. Günther's injuries didn't come from this very minor car accident. It was later determined that Günther had been run over by another car prior to this accident.
Oh, could he speak? Did he say anything about what had happened?
Yeah, he was barely awake, but he could say that 4 other men were with him in the car, but that they left and that they were not his friends. And then he said that he wants to leave too and that he doesn't want to stay there. And unfortunately, Günther could not be saved and he died on his way to the hospital.
Oh, that's awful and very strange.
Yes, very confusing and mysterious case. And of course, there are some theories surrounding the death of Günther Stoll. But I think first I want to mention all the few known facts that we have. So, it is a fact that Günther's injuries came from being run over by another car. It is a fact that he was already naked when he was run over. And it is a fact that all the damages on Günther's car came from the second accident.
Right. The second accident being his car off the road when he's found by the truckers, and the first one being when he was initially run over.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
The first theory is rather unspectacular. So some people think that Günther suffered from some kind of mental illness and that he had paranoia. And he then drove somewhere after he left Erna Helfritz, parked his car, got undressed and wandered onto the road in the middle of the night. And then got hit by a car, and either he was left for dead and found by other drivers, or he was put into his car by the ones who had hit him and that they wanted to take him somewhere, maybe the hospital, when the second accident occurred and the people who were in the car with Günther took off. Maybe they were drunk, maybe they were scared. After the whole incident got some media attention, a few drivers contacted the police telling them that they saw a hitchhiker around that time in the area. And it is quite possible that this hitchhiker was the guy in the light jacket.
I mean, that really makes sense to me, though. I mean, the guy, he had to go somewhere. You know, the guy they saw at the site when they
Exactly,
initially
yeah.
pulled over, like he had to go somewhere. So if people saw somebody hitchhiking, that could make sense. This actually, something like this kind of just happened. So one of my closest friends from college, one of her closest friends from working on her PhD, this girl Jane Hurley, was a 36-year-old woman. She'd stopped to help at an accident scene in Phoenix, and another like distracted driver trying to avoid the first accident actually ended up plowing into her and her friend, and she was killed. It just happened last week. It's just awful, and it just, yeah. I don't know. I have first responders in my family, and these kind of stories always break my heart. But 2 accidents in one night, though, you know?
It's a lot of bad luck, but it can happen. In fact, I have a story about that. When my dad was younger, he had a friend who had a car accident. Nothing really bad happened. The car was totaled, but he was fine. And another driver stopped and he offered to give him a ride. And the second driver then had a very bad car accident, and my dad's friend ended up paralyzed.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so as much as we want to believe that 2 horrible accidents in a row are just not going to happen, they certainly can.
Yeah, that's a legitimate Final Destination
Yeah.
situation that your dad's friend had. That's really awful.
Of course, the note with the YOG'TZE on it is a very important part for many other theories out there. The big problem, though, Günther's wife threw the paper away in the night before she knew that Günther had an accident. The paper was lost forever, and she only told the police 6 months later about it.
All right. So we don't know for sure if it said YOG'TZE or whether it was like YO6 apostrophe TZE, or if it said something else, or if it said, I mean, who knows if this thing even existed, but I don't know why she'd lie about it. But also, if he left the house at 11 o'clock that night, what, she threw the note away and trash collection was the next morning?
Pretty much, yeah. She threw it out and it was gone.
Ugh.
Maybe she was also like too distracted by hearing the news about her husband that she only remembered it later and then it was too late.
It could be.
Could be.
Yeah.
And even if it existed, we don't know if it had anything to do with the death of Günther Stoll. So obviously the police tried to find out the meaning of YOG'TZE, and they found that this word does not exist in any known language on this huge planet.
Oh, so maybe it is aliens.
Maybe. But if it didn't say YOG'TZE but YO6TCE, then it is a Romanian radio transmission sign. Apparently also this clue didn't lead anywhere though.
Oh, that is interesting though. Do we know if he was into using radios?
No, not as far as we know.
Okay.
Police didn't find anything more to that. Another thing that police found out is that Günther Stoll drove often across the Dutch border. So the Netherlands are only like 2.5 hour drive from Anshausen, and some people speculate that he somehow got into the drug trading business there. That he then owed bad people a lot of money, and therefore he felt threatened, and later on he had to die for it.
Yeah, that seems like a stretch though, doesn't it? It's a good story, but that kind of sounds like the Hallmark After Dark movie version of events, right? Like he didn't have any criminal record or drug history, did he?
No, he did not. And I too think that it's a stretch. He really seemed to be quite the average Joe, as I said.
Yeah.
I mean, but then on the other hand, so was Walter White. And if he was
I still
naive,
haven't watched that.
what? Are you crazy?
I know. I'm going to, I promise. I just said to my husband I'm ready to watch it now. But yeah, no, you're right. A lot of people can get mixed up in stuff and you'd never expect
Yeah,
it.
and I mean, if he was naive and he got in with the wrong people, he was like naive and thought, okay, I'm unemployed. It's a good way for me to make some money, and it's easy money. I just drive across the border, and then something went wrong, and
Mhm.
he owed money for whatever happened. But then on the other hand, wouldn't they just shoot him or strangle him or hell, even run over him with a car? But why would they put him in his own car afterwards and drive him somewhere? To make him disappear or what? I mean, maybe. And maybe if he owed money and that's why he went to Erna Helfritz, maybe she was kind of wealthy, and because she was considered to be a good Christian, Günther hoped she would help him.
I don't know. It seems so odd. I mean, in what kind of scenario do you go to your parents' neighbor for help before going to them? Especially since it seems like he had a good relationship with his parents. I mean, could you imagine your mother's reaction if you woke a neighbor up in the middle of the night? Could you imagine? My Irish Catholic mother. Oh, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Yeah, no. It's
It's a little
strange.
bit, but the whole story is strange. So
It is. It's good.
there's another theory, but I think this one is not as popular as the other ones. So they say because Günther, he was a food technician, and he found out some scandal concerning food, quite possibly yogurt. And that's the
Oh.
note he wrote down had something to do with that. So I don't know, maybe they think Nestle or another food company had him killed.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I could see, I guess, maybe allegedly a food company would have him killed to protect some kind of food secret. But I think if that were the case, they could probably afford to hire someone to make his death happen in a way that would just look accidental, don't you?
I think so too. You know what
Yeah.
I'm thinking now about this Louis de Funès movie where he's the food critic, these French movies by Louis de Funès. And
No, probably
there's
not.
this huge scandal, and he realizes that all the modern French food is produced in factories where they only use like cardboard or something like this.
My sister Lucy in England had a bit of an upset a few years ago. There was an issue where I think Tesco's beef turned out to actually be horse.
Oh yeah, that was with IKEA too.
Yeah.
IKEA had the köttbullar, and yeah, but it's meat. I
Oh,
mean,
that's right. It was horse meatballs.
yeah, oh,
Uh,
meh. It's
uh,
horse. As long as
I
it's
mean,
not dog.
yeah, I don't have any problem with it. My mom really enjoys a nice horse steak. My mother, who I get all my murdery interest from, we have a motto about my mom, which is the cuter it is, the better it tastes. So oh yeah. Oh yeah. She's a real gourmet foodie. Yeah, she's had puffin, you name it. If she can get her paws on it, she'll eat it, probably
What
raw.
is puffin? I only thought,
Puffin, they're
yeah.
those little birds with
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah,
little
yeah.
black and white birds with like the little rainbow beaks. They're the
Yeah.
cutest little. There was a big campaign in the 80s against smoking where it was like no puffin and it was like a picture of a puffin with like a cigarette. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Mm.
Mm. Bummer.
Such a bummer.
Uh,
So
yeah, back
sorry.
back to Günther.
Yes.
Yeah, about the food company. I honestly think they would rather destroy your life by suing you for the last penny you own.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they would have different possibilities than run over you with the car. Have you
Right.
undressed first? I mean, why? It's not
It's
the
just
mafia.
yeah.
Yeah, Annie, what do you think? What happened to Günther?
Oh God. If I had to guess based on what you've told me, it sadly sounds like undiagnosed mental illness. It really, really sounds like he had a psychotic break and at some point he just took off his clothes and then maybe stepped naked in front of a car. So my guess would be the people who hit him panicked and maybe put him in his own car and were trying to get him to a hospital and then they crashed again. I don't know. My guess is it sounds like there were four men in the car that hit him, doesn't it? Based on what
Yeah.
he said about there being four men. I don't know. Maybe eventually one of them will leave a deathbed confession and then we'll know.
You always hope for those.
I know, right? But I don't know. His wife seems odd to me, right? Like if she thought that he was mentally ill, it seems like she would have said. But if she believed that people were following him, why would she have thrown away the note or let him leave at such a late time at night, you know? I don't know. Something about the wife seems hinky to me.
I mean, that's my best guess too, that he
Yeah.
had some kind of undiagnosed mental health problem.
Yeah.
About his wife, she seems super weird, but then, maybe she was just used already to his erratic behavior, like everyday occurrences, and she's like, yeah, okay, go have a beer and I'll talk to you in the morning.
Yeah, it could be.
I fear we might never know what really happened to Günther that night. But to this day, as I said, it is one of Germany's most mysterious cases, and periodically it still gets dug up by the police to see if there is any new leads.
I can see why it would be really, really interesting. And oh, that poor man. I hope his family are able to get answers, someday.
Annie's gonna post the link in our Facebook group. There is a German, Austrian, Switzerland TV show since the 70s. It's called Aktenzeichen XY ungelöst. It's a show where the
Wait, one more time.
Aktenzeichen XY ungelöst. I love it. So it's basically unsolved cases that they reenact, and the police then asks for help or witnesses, or if there are any people who know somebody's got to know something, this kind of thing.
Yeah,
And they did an episode about this, and Annie, I'm gonna send you the link, and you're gonna post it. I know you people won't understand the words. It's in German, obviously, but
that's okay.
it's you see what happened, and you see the very stylish, fashionable 80s police guys talking
This is
about
the
it.
best. Yeah, all kinds of dramatic reenactments.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. Yeah, definitely. We'll post that in the Facebook group and we'll have a discussion about it. All right, let's talk about something good. What's good?
As we're talking about Germany and German shows like Aktenzeichen XY ungelöst now, I can recommend you a show. It's the first German Netflix series. There are 2 seasons now. It's called Dark. And at first I didn't want to watch it because it's German TV shows and they normally suck, but this one is really good. If you're a little bit into, let's say, Stranger Things meets Twin Peaks meets Back to the Future, then you should definitely watch it. It's a very dark, as the name says, TV show about time travel. It has a very dark atmosphere and it's really, really good. Oh, and the soundtrack is amazing. Annie, you're gonna love the soundtrack.
Oh, that's the best. Oh, that sounds really good because I am into all of those things. That sounds
And I'm
amazing.
pretty sure it is available Netflix US with subtitles. And
Oh,
the second
great.
season came out like 2 days ago, and my husband and I watched it yesterday. It's really good.
My something good this week. So I love magpies, the bird. I really love all of the corvids, all the crows and the ravens, but magpies, they have kind of special meaning to me. And you and I are fortunate that we have a mutual friend who is a very talented young jeweler in Portugal. And she has created for me the most beautiful filigree sculpture of a magpie in the form of a necklace. It's amazing. I got it recently, and every time I wear it, I get so many compliments on it. She is so talented. I can't recommend her enough. I'm going to post photo and information to her shop, Ania Garadas. I'm probably pronouncing that still somewhat wrong, but Ania, it's amazing. It's such a special piece to me, and I just really treasure it.
I saw a picture of the necklace already, obviously, and it's really beautiful. I want her to make something for me later on.
You need a beagle.
Well, she's gonna do a beagle, not for me, but she said she's gonna use Jam's photo for creating a beagle piece.
That's amazing.
Another thing I want to mention was just how very, very much we appreciate your emails and your iTunes reviews. Really, they make our days when we see them.
Yeah, they really do. We can't thank you enough. We really do appreciate all the positive feedback. And Johanna, I really enjoyed that episode. I love all of these sort of obscure European cases that you know all about.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. You're the one with the heavy research. I'm the one with the obscure little German cases.
It's good. It's good.
So please, friends, tell us what you think. Come to the Facebook group. Tell us what you think happened to Günther. I'm really curious to hear about your theories. Our email is freshhellpodcast@gmail.com. Come find us on Instagram, find us on Facebook. Tell your friends about our little show here where we tell you everything.
Yeah, that's right. We tell you everything. Did any of the other Rebecca Zahow podcasts you listen to tell you about the Danielle Steele neighbor parking woes? I bet they did not.
Yeah, people really love that detail. It's funny.
I couldn't not tell you.
You see, and today you learned about the Olympic Games and that they were held both the same year until 1992. I'm sure you forgot about that if you knew it. So please, please join the Facebook group. Maybe don't bother with Twitter because neither of us understands it and uses it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, we need an intern. Yeah. And please leave us a review so I can take a screenshot of it and send it to Johanna, who's an Android user. Nothing makes our day more than hearing from you guys. So, as always, please remember that if you're going through hell,
keep going, but don't
Bye.
step in front of a car.
Oh, God, no, don't do that.
Tschüss.
Bye.